Now let's respond to that. Josh, I'd like to go to you first, and you kind of made a little face there when we were talking about the rainy day fund and how those funds are there or not there and how they will be used. Can you respond to that?
Well, it's my understanding that a lot of that money has already been spent. I don't think that we'd be sitting on top of additional rainy day funds if we're continuing to lose all the revenue that we've been losing. And Governor Daniels would not have suggested the cuts to education had all other options not been exercised. And, you know, I think that the big thing here people keep talking about is, do we really want to see services get lost? You know, do we really, you know, do we want to make cuts to education? Nobody wants to see fewer services from government or cuts to education. But at some point, government, we have to realize, is funded exclusively by taxpayer dollars. And if revenue is dropping, then that means people aren't making as much money and the taxes aren't coming in. So government has to be reflective of the economic conditions that the citizens are experiencing. And I think that you know, we're going to have to realize that it's time to make cuts at every level of government, because right now people aren't able to pay their bills, you know, stay in their houses. Times are tough, and government services have to come around. One more point I'll make real quick is that last year teacher salaries increased by, I think, around, you know, year by year it's anywhere between 2 to 4% increase in teacher salaries. Over the last couple of years, we've seen the average Hoosier salary drop by 3%. So, you know, you've got the cost of government services heading in the opposite direction of the salaries that most Hoosiers, taxpayers, are making.
Representative Michael, what would you say in terms of how we are going to be paying for these services in the future?
Well, I think that in the future, we're going to have a hard conversation about what kind of revenue stream we're going to use, what's going to be fair to Hoosiers across the state to pay for these services. Kind of going back to the caps, the one thing about 1, 2, and 3, there is a unfairness between why 1, 2, 3. But besides that, in regards to schools and the issue of the cuts, you know, you're right. We are very limited on the amount of money that we're bringing in. This is the toughest time ever. There's no question that 09 and 10 have been a huge challenge to the General Assembly and our state and our Hoosiers and people who are working. It's going to be even worse, we know, next year. The reality is we got to prioritize, though. And I think that what was said earlier is that schools are critical. And while you have heard about average increases, those average increases aren't everywhere in every county across the state. And there are some counties that are seeing, or some school corporations that are seeing much larger, when I know that I have a school corporation in mind that is that has actually not had raises for the last 2 years, given it up, but they're still going to be penalized from this. So I see the General Assembly very much needing to have a hard conversation about reevaluating the funding stream that's going to support government. You know, the state has taken over the schools, lucky them, not a good time for sales and income to be supporting schools. But the reality is that I would like to see our state really prioritize how we're spending our dollars. And I think education is critical. And we kind of go back and forth and we kind of argue about how it needs to be done. I think we all believe that education is #1 to our future success. And we're at a point where we can't afford to not educate. And it is, I don't think any of us argue about the instruction and the academics, but we've got to make sure that that's where money's being invested.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Very briefly, we only have a minute left or less, and we haven't gotten to redistricting yet. So I just want to, like, very quickly, if we could, talk about what you think about what we should be doing with redistricting for House and Senate seats and congressional seats.
You know, I think that we're in the House and the Senate, we're going to have that open conversation. I think that there is a variety of people that should be involved in that conversation. I am certainly not opposed to us having some kind of a guideline. When I look at my particular district, it's very condensed and it's very square, and I feel like I don't, you know, my people come from the same kind of general area. We're a very rural. So I think there'll be a lot of input from legislators, and I think that they'll do the right thing because they're elected by the voters.
All right. And Josh, you think we should do it very quickly?
Yes, I think redistricting needs to be done, and I have to say that I think you know, people like myself probably shouldn't be involved, people who are interested in the politics aspect of it. I think the people in the state want to have districts that, you know, represent their community and have equally proportioned votes around the state.
Fantastic. Well, that's our show for tonight. Stan, thank you for your help.
And thanks. I think I'm going to redistrict the newsroom. It's not rectangular enough.
It's not straight, I know. Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of In Focus, and of course, a big thank you to our panel of experts. We appreciate it. Don't forget to post your questions for next month at infocus@indiana.edu, or if you would like to participate in a blog, leave a comment, or see portions of this show, please visit our website, indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. With recent tragedies such as the Haiti earthquake, we examine how Indiana residents help people all over the world on the next In Focus. Have a great night.
Production support for In Focus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922 with residential and business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. Hoosiers for Higher Education, a statewide organization for the alumni and friends of Indiana University, dedicated to raising the awareness of the importance of higher education for Indiana citizens and the state's future. More information at 800-937-3448. Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for central and southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.